Nothing proves the ability for you to lead other people more than the way that you lead yourself.
You're listening to the Dare to Be Different podcast, a podcast for people who want to live an extraordinary life. On this week's episode, Joe and Ed talk about no matter what your position is, you still have leadership potential. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Dare to Be Different podcast. My name's Joe Altieri, my co-host, Ed Newell. How are you today?
Doing great. How are you?
Good, good. Good weekend?
Yeah, it was a great weekend. Yeah, I did a project that I did not expect to do this weekend. I was getting the Christmas tree down, because we're early Christmas setter-uppers.
No, you're not.
Yes, we are. And so then I had to put fall stuff back up into the attic with some additional things. And I was standing on the steps of my ladder, and I threw this bag of shoes up in, and I destroyed my ladder of my attic. So I put in an entirely new attic ladder this weekend.
So you have one of those fold down ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you destroy it? So you toss it up and you just your weight
I think I'm probably broaching the weight limit just standing on it, and then by thrusting my body upward, thrusting. I put pressure down on that last step, and the whole thing came crashing down. It was great.
I feel that was a bit more violent than you have to do to put fall stuff away, thrusting.
It was. I was trying to do it quickly, and I ended up turning it into a whole day project of taking out this attic ladder and putting in a new one.
So if you would have just gone all the way up the ladder, gently placed them, your weekend would have been
there's some sort
different.
of principle in here, when you try to rush through a project and things just go badly.
That's definitely a future podcast.
That's a future podcast.
So this weekend, my family and I took a personality test. So we all did it. So
okay.
and it's
Enneagram.
Yes. And it was interesting to see with my children how they are different than my wife and I, and how we're all different from each other. And have you taken that before?
I have taken it.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's this subculture right now of all these personality tests, I feel like, and
it's a BuzzFeed thing.
It is. They've existed for a while, but within the last few years, I feel like it's definitely had a massive rise in popularity to take all the personality tests, to know all of your answers, and then be able to talk about them at a party. And I don't take it for that reason, but I forgot my answer. I had to look it back up after you told me you took it. But
so what was really interesting? So I have it was my wife, my two daughters, one of their friends, and me. We all took it together, and we came across this interesting thing where is one personality better than another? And yeah, so this is this really deep conversation, because in my family we have we are.
That's exactly something a 3 would say.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
You only get that joke if you know Enneagram types, but
yeah, I'm definitely man, I killed this personality test.
I'm the best personality. Wow.
But
yeah,
we were trying to help our right or wrong personality, right? No good or bad, no right or wrong. But what we did find was that every one of us has some leadership qualities in us. So that kind of led us into today's topic for our podcast, which is, how do you lead, especially as a young person, as a teenage girl or whatever, how do you lead when you're not in charge?
Right.
Which is an interesting topic.
Yeah.
And I think it plays into, if we look at the values that the Dare to Be Different podcast, there's some things that the values that we have, trying to make this fit into one of those, not necessarily that we want to force it into, but the fact of the matter is, if we are ignoring the things that are inherently in us, we can't necessarily have a healthy life.
Right.
If there's something in us that wants to lead, we have to figure out ways to make that happen.
Right.
And then it also helps with the health of our different relationships and things like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought it was a great topic.
Yeah.
You and I had chit-chatted for a few minutes about it beforehand, but a lot of this is just going to be kind of off the cuff. So
yeah. And I mean, for the majority of your life, I think this is going to apply to most people. How do I lead when I'm not the main guy? And in most circumstances, you're probably not. Even within your marriage, there's like a partnership going on. at work, it's very likely that you're not the top dog, that you're not the ultimate decision maker. There's always somebody above you.
Sure.
You run your company and you probably feel like you're not in charge.
I just had that conversation the other day. It's amazing how I have so many more bosses than I used to when I worked for someone else.
Yeah. So it's in every season, no matter where you're at. I think all of us know that there is somebody above us that's helping, that I report to or that I'm responsible to, and that my decisions are going to affect. Obviously, my decisions are going to affect the people below me or the people I have influence in. But really, how do I work out my leadership? How do I work out who I am as a leader and who I'm created to be? How do I do that? Maybe in an organization where I'm very clearly not in charge. I'm just a guy on the team. I'm a member on the team. I got my boss in front of me. I maybe have some people below me, or maybe you're I don't know who's listening to this. Maybe you're at your first job, and it's a part-time job and you just joined a team. You're just a team member. How do you lead in a circumstance like that?
Yeah. And how do you not become terribly frustrated during that phase too?
Right.
Because there's definitely this potential for, especially somebody that has some leadership ability and some leadership desire to want to go faster, and they always doubt what's going on. Oh,
right.
My leader's such an idiot.
Right.
Et cetera, et cetera.
I could do better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we'll kind of hit a lot of those.
Yeah.
Through this discussion.
Yeah.
But it is something that this is a great skill to have. Learning
Right.
how to lead when you don't necessarily have the title.
Yeah.
is really important. So the first thing that I thought of was we have to learn to lead ourselves. Number one, you have to lead yourself before you can lead any other team.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think I'm the hardest person to lead. For me, I'm the hardest person to lead, and I carry natural influence just in the people that in my life that I'm responsible for and that follow me. But oftentimes I will wake up and I have to motivate myself more than I have to motivate anybody else to do the things that I know that are important to me, to make sure that I'm healthy, or I'm following the right schedule, or I'm using my time well, or I'm being the type of person I want to be. No one's going to lead me for me. Right. And so I have to be the one to take ownership over myself and decide that, okay, I'm going to move myself forward.
Yeah, and self-discipline is one of the key. I mean, it's just if you're showing up late every day to work or whatever your responsibilities are, there's no possible way that, number one, you're going to be appointed some sort of title, some sort of leadership title, but also the people around you are simply not going to recognize any leadership in you if you can't do the most basic things that are required of you. Yeah.
And I guess in some degree that also means you have to learn how to follow well too. Yeah. In order to lead well, you have to follow well. You have to be able to do those basic things, and those basic things, I guess, earn you influence, and they earn you credibility. And if I'm the type of employee or person being led by a leader, and they have to take time out of their schedule to remind me to show up on time, man, I don't have a lot of patience for people like that. I might let it slide once, but you do it 2 or 3 times, and all of a sudden we're gonna have a conversation that might end you being on my team. Right. So when that applies to me, I want to make sure that I never have to be in a situation where my leader above me has to do those things to me or have those conversations with me. That starts with leading myself well and make sure that I'm doing the things that I would want somebody below me to do.
Yeah, and it does. I like the point about learning how to be a good follower.
Yeah.
Because, the fact of the matter is the best leaders were typically the best followers.
Right.
They have respect for the authority of the person that is leading them. And, they're not, backbiting, doing the things that, are petty, you know what I mean? That really try to get in the way of the leadership of their other person.
Yeah, and following is a skill. Sure. To have trust in the person above you, to know that they're not perfect. They're going to make mistakes too, but you're going to choose to honor them. You're going to choose to put your trust in them to carry out what they've told you to do to the best of your ability. If they tell me something one time, I don't want them to have to tell me again in order to know that they can trust me, that I'm going to get that task done. So there is a skill in following well, but I brought that up because it comes down to leading myself well. If I'm going to follow well, it's going to be because I'm ultimately leading myself well.
Yeah, nothing proves the ability for you to lead other people more than the way that you lead yourself.
That's really good.
That's just it.
That's really good. We need to quote that.
Put that down at the bottom.
That's an Instagram caption.
So the second thing that I was thinking of on this topic is choose to be positive. And again, this falls into some frustration that you might feel if the leader isn't doing things the way that you would do them. Just stuff like that.
Do you feel like you're good at that?
I personally am, as a leader, I'm very positive. As a follower, I'm not. I'm just being honest. My leadership instinct, if that makes sense, is so strong that I get frustrated so easily, and the critical nature, my critical nature comes out because I want things to be perfect.
Yeah.
And it really is tough for me. I'm just being honest. You have to do some self-reflection.
Right. It's an interesting thought, I guess, for myself. And it's not just, I guess when you say be positive, it's not just about like being happy. But it is about, I think, bringing the right attitude to your boss, or bringing the right attitude, I guess, to work every day, that you're going to be a valuable contributing member to the environment, a valuable contributing member to the rest of your team, and to the people above you, to the people below you. I guess if the opposite of positivity would be negativity, and if I'm constantly bringing negativity into a situation, you're never going to be able to lead anybody,
right.
Yourself or the people below you. So I don't, I guess, want to say this is just a feel-good thing to say be happy at work, but it is about bringing the right attitude, the right energy, I guess, into a situation.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that plays into it is the language that you use. So using we language instead of I language.
That's good.
That makes a big difference. If you desiring to be a leader is all about you, you're never going to be a successful leader.
Right.
And so, talking about the team versus, what I get out of this, talking about what we can accomplish, not necessarily what I can accomplish.
Yeah.
That plays into it.
That's good, because you can easily fall into this place of negativity or being super critical. Actually, I think we're talking about criticism at some point, but being super critical towards others or towards situations that, man, it's not going to set the right tone for anything you want to try and accomplish. If you bring positivity into the situation, even just optimism, I think you can just go further faster in anything you're trying to accomplish, because it's going to get you in the right mindset. It's going to get the people around you in the right mindset.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is people like to be around positive people. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
There's very few people that like to be around negative vibes and negative people.
Yeah. I've heard it said that the guy that says I can and the guy that says I can't, they're both right.
Both right.
And so it's almost like a self-fulfilling, word that you bring to your own soul whenever you decide to be positive in a situation or be negative in a situation. Both people end up right.
Right. So the third thing, you had mentioned this, was think critically.
Oh, okay.
So think critically.
Yeah.
But the key is to not be critical.
Okay.
So again, there's this fine line between thinking critically, which means essentially I want things to be better than they are.
Right.
Finding ways to accomplish the goal faster, better, whatever the case may be, but without being critical of the process, of the leaders, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So I guess the challenge is figuring out how to differentiate between the two. And it might go back to what you just said about language that you use. You can bring certain language in a situation that will be critically thinking towards an idea or towards a situation. But depending on the language you use, it could really come off as criticizing. Mm-hmm. And it could easily make the person that you're talking to feel attacked or belittled, or feel like, that you are putting them down. But really, you're just trying to think critically about a situation. So that I think there's something to learn there in how you communicate your, I guess, criticism, but I don't want to use that word, your critical thinking.
Sure. And I think a lot of this is your heart. It's your own internal motives. If your motives are, I want the people around me to succeed,
right,
then that is critical thinking. if your motives, and again, this is when I lay my head down at night, when I really think about why I'm doing things, not like the face that I put out there.
Right.
But if your motive is, I want this person to do this thing so that I look better.
Yeah.
Then that's criticism.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to come from the wrong place.
Exactly.
If it's coming from the right spirit, the right heart, a positive attitude towards the situation, your team, your goals, I think you're bringing your best foot forward towards what you're bringing to the table, your ideas, your thoughts, your critical thinking. If you let negativity creep in, you're easily going to end up in a place where you just choose to be critical. We talked about this, I think this was last week. Anybody can be critical. It is so easy to be critical.
We can always find faults in everything around us.
Yeah. And it just comes natural, I think, to people to be critical. It really takes an intentional process in your own spirit to say, I'm going to choose to take where things are now and move them forward. And there might be some difficult conversations that have to get us there, but I'm going to approach those in the right way. I'm going to handle them in the right way. I'm going to say the right language in order to allow me to get from point A to point B. And that could be me saying something to my leader or the boss the boss above me. It definitely happens when I'm saying the things to the people below me as well.
Yeah, and I think that your heart comes out in the way you even approach some of those things.
That's good.
If you go and say, we want, or I think that we can make this better if we do this. Right. Is much different than you're doing this wrong. We need to change it to this.
Yeah.
It's crazy the difference, and that conversation can be had with your leader, with a subordinate, with someone who's on the same level as you. It doesn't matter. If we do this, we can make this better. Or here's an idea of how we can succeed together.
Yeah.
Or the other side, and I think I did mention this. If you don't care who gets credit, that makes a big difference in your true heart. Like if you really don't care who gets the credit for an idea or a success or anything like that, that means that your heart's right.
Right.
If you only care about whether or not your idea gets you acclaim, gets you some sort of applause, et cetera, then your heart's not right.
That's really good. And that comes back down to, your ultimate motivation, like your ultimate spirit. If I do not care about who gets the credit, then I'm not going to be threatened by maybe somebody else bringing something better to the table. I'm not going to be upset if the best idea didn't come from me. I just want to help make sure this idea succeeds. And that may be your role in the organization, is just to help the idea that was come up with, to help it succeed. You might not be in a position to come up with the idea,
right?
But you are in a position to help it be successful, help make it better, help improve it, help make sure that it gets implemented correctly. And so much that goes back to being a great follower, and carrying out your responsibilities and what you're actually tasked to do.
Yeah, and I really think that great leaders are content, but they're never satisfied. So they always want things to be better.
Right.
But they don't have this discontentment that drives them to be critical.
Yeah, that's good. Definitely not a discontentment to be critical. You can have a healthy discontentment that drives everything to be better. Yeah, that's good.
So 4, be collaborative, not competitive. This one's tough for me. I am a crazy competitive person.
So much though of this, I think this idea comes back to what you just said though too, where if you don't care who gets the credit, I think you naturally will default towards a more collaborative mindset and a more collaborative team. Because we're all in this together. It's not ultimately about me. It's not ultimately about what I accomplish. But if we can, if we all win, well, if you win, we all win,
Right.
And so if I can just help drive everything forward, if I can just help drive team success or organizational success, or even just make sure that my boss succeeds, I think at the end of the day, you all win, and that will help create a more collaborative. What was it? Collaborative versus.
Be collaborative, not competitive.
Collaborative, not competitive.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying this is definitely not the right, but I'm more of like the Ricky Bobby, like second place is the first loser, kind of thing. Right. So this is something that I struggle with because I actually thrive on competition. So it's not that I necessarily want, you to fail. I just want to, like, it's just something that excites me about competition. And so
I don't feel like I've ever seen you working in organizations with you, though. I feel like that may drive you towards organizational success as a team, but I don't feel like I've ever seen you compete with me, like to be who's going to be more successful in the organization. I don't feel like that actually describes you.
No, well, and it's again, I think that competition can be very healthy.
Yeah,
I do.
Agreed.
I think it also comes back to heart.
It does.
Right? So competition, in the negative sense, means that if I succeed, you have to fail. Right. It's just there's no
I win, you lose.
I win, you lose. There's no we win together.
Right.
And especially when it comes to an organization where there is limited leadership possibilities. Right. So you have, some organizations have one leader at the top, or you have a board of directors, or you have a management group. You kind of go from, your day-to-day employee to middle management to upper management, something like that.
Yeah.
And the ladder gets thinner at the top, right?
Right.
And so I think a lot of times that happens so I'm required to collaborate with you because we're at the same level, but yet there's this I'm trying to shoulder my way past you as well.
Right.
And I think that's dangerous.
It is. And I think it was last week we talked about this concept where just because you open a door for someone else doesn't mean you're closing the door on yourself. And I almost put myself, if I was on my first job, working in like a fast food restaurant, and I'm the lowest level person, and I have a bunch of team members that I'm working alongside.
Probably Chick-fil-A, I'm sure.
Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
You could easily be in a mindset that says, I need to compete to be better than the rest of the people on my team so that I get the next promotion or I can, increase. But I think there's a better mentality, and the better mentality is collaboration. If you can position your mindset and who you are as part of this organization to say, okay, not only do I want myself to be good, but I want all of us to be good. I want all of us to be successful. I think that will be seen by the other people around you, and certainly by the people that are leading you. And I'm quicker as a leader in my organization. I'm quicker to promote that person than the person I see who's just trying to outshine the other person for really, no organizational success, but really just to promote themselves.
So you're sitting in a collaboration meeting, right? And a bunch of ideas get thrown out. We have a goal to accomplish, and only one of them can come out of the room.
Sure.
So I think that's sometimes is the spot where I believe so passionately in what I believe is the right way of doing things that the other ways are almost less than.
They're stupid.
They're stupid. Yes. Why would you possibly bring that up? Like,
did you hear my idea?
Yes.
It was brilliant.
You guys don't want me to go first, right? Because then no one else is going to compare.
Meeting. Yeah.
But I do think that's
I could see that.
That's a trap that if you want to be a leader, in that organization going forward, you have to default to collaboration rather than competition.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Yeah.
Especially for, I'm a number 3, which apparently is, somebody who loves competition. So.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you do all the things we've been talking about thus far, you could position yourself in that meeting that even if you bring an idea to the table and you're almost competing for what idea, if you do the other things well, you're going to position yourself for your idea to be heard and maybe even selected by whoever's making those decisions.
Yeah. Another heart thing, though, you can't secretly hope that others fail. Like that's the other portion of this is that you really have to, hope that they succeed.
Right.
And that's tough.
Right.
It's really, really tough.
Yeah.
All right. So the 5th one, this is an interesting one. Refuse to be passive.
Okay.
So if you're not in charge, typically the default is fine, whatever, I'll do whatever you say.
Right.
You know what I mean? If I have to be there at 8:00, I'm going to be there at 8:00. Not,
right.
I'm just okay, whatever.
Yeah.
The Eeyore sort of thing.
It reminds me of what we said at the beginning. Just lead yourself. Like you have to be ready to lead yourself well. I think when I think of the idea of maybe being passive in an organization is I'm not going to do anything until somebody tells me to do something.
Exactly.
But if I'm in a position, I've been given authority whether I realize it or not, or I have influence whether I realize it or not. And I have a capacity to bring about progress, to bring about change, and no one has to tell me to do it. I should be in a position where I'm leading myself well, that I know the goals of the organization, I know the values of the organization, I know the instruction that have been given in general to myself or my team or my department, and I'm able to move forward. If you're in a position where you feel like you don't know those things, I might argue that you haven't positioned yourself to hear those things. I guess you could be in a situation where you have a bad boss or a bad department that's not giving clear vision.
Sure.
But even regardless, if you are in an environment like that, I still believe you yourself have the capacity to not sit back and just allow the organization to fail or allow the organization to continue to go down the wrong path. Even if I'm not being led, I can lead myself. I can choose not to be passive, and I can choose to bring about success in my area on my own.
Yeah, it's all about taking initiative.
Right.
And I know this sounds silly, you see that the garbage cans are overflowing.
Right.
Taking the garbage out, throwing it away,
Right.
just things like that. Yes, your boss, that's not part of your job description. And I'm using it's a silly example, right?
Yeah.
But that's one of those things that you get recognized, and it might not be your boss says, "Oh, hey, good job taking the garbage out," but the people around you see that you care. They see that you're doing something above and beyond, and through taking initiative, you'll actually start bringing other people along with you. And that kind of leads into our last point, which is actually the big one, which is understand that power does not equal authority.
Right.
So having a position, having a boss title does not necessarily mean that you have authority. They're completely different things.
Right, because when we talk about this idea on how to lead when you're not in charge, leadership is really at the core just influence.
It's influence, exactly.
Everyone has influence. You might not realize it, but there are people that you influence. And it might just be coworkers. You're not even technically over them, but your attitude that you bring to the table, your collaborative nature, all those things help influence the people around you. You influence people in your family, your kids, your spouse. You can even influence the people above you by the way that you lead. And so all of that just takes itself towards leadership. I don't need a title. I don't need some accolade to say, okay, you are a leader. I believe every single person listening to this actually is a leader.
Sure.
You just have to identify, okay, what sphere am I called to lead right now, and where do I have influence, and where can I bring about positive change?
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, if you follow the other things that we talked about, the other 5 points, you will start having more and more influence on the people around you.
Right.
And that's there are people that are natural leaders. There just are. There's a couple. You are a great example. You come into a room, there's something to be done. It doesn't matter if your title is president. It just simply doesn't matter. You start, and really it's through those things that we talked about, but you can almost do it in 10 minutes. Like you can start, influencing the room, influencing the people around you, and rally people towards a common goal without anybody ever saying this guy is the leader.
Yeah, and I think it, like you said, it takes all those other things. So you walk into the room, even no one has to tell you to look at the situation and say, okay, I'm going to help make this better. No one has to tell you that, I don't know, that thing needs changed, or that piece of trash needs picked up, or whatever the case may be.
I like how you looked around
I'm like looking for something to say. You got a team of people that leads this podcast. You as the boss, you don't want to be the only guy saying to them, hey, do X, Y, Z in order to make this better. You would want your team members to be proactively thinking, okay, how can I bring about positive change? They don't need some title to know that you're in charge of development of the podcast. No, if you're in this role, you can help bring about positive change regardless of your role, regardless of your title.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, if you are relying on a title as the thing that you point to exercise your authority, that is the weakest way that you can possibly work in that authority.
That's good. Yeah, and because you're relying on some sort of word. But the word doesn't actually give you influence. It's going to be your character. It's going to be your actions. It's going to be the energy you bring, your positivity. It's going to be the way that you follow. All of those things are going to build way more credibility to your ability to lead than just some title.
Yeah. And so I guess as we kind of wrap things up, since the countdown clock's almost done and it's probably going to beep here unless the vice president of countdown clocks, Nicholas DeSarno, makes sure that it doesn't beep before it goes off. He has authority over that countdown clock. But as we're kind of wrapping things up, I believe, to your point earlier, where you said everybody is a leader.
Yeah.
I 100% believe that.
Right.
And I also believe that one of the ways to have an extraordinary life, because that's really what we're talking about,
right,
is to learn how to be a better leader.
Right.
And that is, that's family. That could be your family, your friends. It could be part of an organization. It could just be leading yourself.
Right.
But you have to have some backbone of leadership, some semblance of leadership to have a successful life.
Right. Yeah. So no matter where you're at, you can bring about positive change in whatever sphere you find yourself in. You don't need a title. You don't need to be the top guy. You heard it from Joe. Even when you are the top guy, you're never the top guy.
You're never the top guy.
And so wherever you're at today, where can you bring about positive change? Where can you help bring leadership? How can you bring positive energy? How can you follow better? You do those things, you'll be able to lead when you're not in charge.
Absolutely. And, if you have any other tips, we'd love to hear about it. So, get a hold of us on joealtieri.com or daretobedifferentpodcast.com. Send in, we'd love to hear back from you guys, because I'm sure that there's a lot more than just the 6 things that we had talked about on ways to be a better leader, even when you're not in charge.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys so much for checking out the podcast. Share this, subscribe, and we'll catch you again next week.